Today's deck tech is all about using our little mafia of mana dorks, X spells, and the Hogfather himself to either beat down or combo off, sending our opponents to sleep with the fishes.
That's a Sicilian message. It means Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes.
This deck was suggested by commenter Paldos Family 2490, so Paldos, I hope you enjoy. Raggadragga Goreguts Boss is the Don of this deck, and is the undisputed kingpin of the mana dork mafia behind him, turning even the smallest mana dork into a good fella.
Funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you.
Raggadragga Goreguts Boss is a 4 mana, 2 generic, 1 red, 1 green, 4/4 legendary creature human boar that says, each creature you control with a mana ability gets +2/+2. Whenever a creature you control with a mana ability attacks, untap it. Lastly, whenever you cast a spell, if at least 7 mana was spent to cast it, untap target creature. It gets +7/+7 and gains trample until end of turn. That's a lot of text, but it breaks down perfectly what this commander wants to do. 1. Play mana dorks. 2. Hit people with mana dorks. 3. Cast big spell, make mana dork bigger, punch harder. Pretty simple goal. Our creatures help us achieve both goals of the Hogfather. Let's start with the mana dorks. Elvish Mystic, Llanowar Elves, Beastcaller Savant. Devoted Druid has an interesting interaction with Raggadragga because it gets -1/-1 counters, but Raggadragga's ability boosts its power so it essentially can produce even more mana before dying to its own ability. Bramble Familiar, while also being a mana dork, is a combo card with its adventure side, Fetch Quest, but I'll cover that later. Coppermere, Elysian Carotid, Ironmere, Ornithopter of Paradise. It's a flying mana dork which gives us a layer of evasion for when we need to swing in to hit people. Rada, Heir to Keld, Ruby, Daring Tracker. Zerta Druid also has the added benefit of dealing 1 damage to our opponents when it taps, which with Raggadragga we can hopefully do twice a turn. Alloy Mirror, Draconic Disciple, while also being a mana dork, is a Dragon Factory. Palladium Mirror, Karametra's Acolyte. Leafkin Avenger is an absolute unit, adding mana for each creature with power 4 and over, but it also can act as a potential win condition if its power gets high enough. These last 3 are the most important because the mana they produce grows as their power does. Kami of Whispered Hopes, a personal favorite of mine since you can tap it for either color you need, and it also lets you add an additional +1/+1 counter when putting them on your creatures. Which doesn't come up often, but it does come up. Viridian Joiner adds green mana equal to its power, as does our final mana dork, Cradle Clearcutter. But Cradle Clearcutter has another purpose that I'll cover as we get deeper into the creatures. The rest of our creatures either help the deck in small ways or cost 7 or more to trigger Raggadragga's ability. Endless One, Apocalypse Hydra. If you can produce enough mana, then this is a win condition, or at least a way to take down 1 or 2 players depending on life totals. Savageborn Hydra can be a huge threat. Double Strike with as many counters as it will usually have is lights out for most players. Targ Nar, Demon Fang Null, has Pack Tactics for a small boost which can come in handy sometimes, is mostly here for their ability to double their power, which aside from combat damage is another win condition I'll cover later when we get to it. Tuk Tuk Rubblefort gives our creatures haste, which lets them tap immediately for mana, but put it together with Bramble Familiar and one of our growing mana dorks, that's a combo to dump all remaining creatures and enchantments onto the battlefield by casting Fetch Quest over and over, then playing the Familiar from exile and repeating the process until we are out of cards in our hand to discard. Doomscar Warrior helps dig through the deck to our most important creatures. Barrage Tyrant is another potential win condition with our colorless creatures, giving us things to lob at our opponents once we make them absolutely huge. This is where the Clear Cutter and other colorless mana dorks come in. By boosting their power, we can swing in and crush an opponent, then turn around and throw that same creature at a different one. Conclave Siege Captain has backup and can help us not only push through damage and grow our board, but thanks to our growing mana dorks and Raggadragga's ability to untap them after being declared as attackers, gives us huge swaths of mana if they connect. Primordial Sage lets us draw cards whenever we cast a creature spell, so again, with something like Bramble Familiar means not only are we milling and putting our huge creatures out, we are also drawing cards. Bane of Malaged applies pressure to our opponents when it attacks by forcing them to exile 2 permanents. Birthing Hulk has Devoid, so it can be used with Barrage Tyrant, but it also comes with 2 little spawn and a regeneration ability. Emergent Woodworm again comes with backup, but more importantly lets us dig deep into the deck to get the cards we really want. Enray's Forerunners gives a small boost, Vigilance, and Trample, a perfect piece for both getting in attacks and meeting the casting cost for Raggadragga's ability. Giant On-Keg, Ward 2 and Trample for our whole board.
Yes!
Terastodon lets us get rid of 3 non-creature permanents. Ulamog's Crusher has Annihilator 2, which when it comes out early enough is sometimes enough by itself to end a game. Artisan of Kozilek not only has Annihilator 2, it also brings something back from the graveyard. Lastly, Desolation Twin. This comes with a huge friend in the form of a token, which can be yeeted with the Barrage Tyrant, so with a little boosting, this ends games. Moving on to our sorceries. Enshrined Memories is a fantastic card and the best way to gasp our hand with creatures. Also, by putting more than 6 into the X, we get the Raggadragga trigger. Faithless Looting is card draw. Fireball, just in here for potential removal, player or creature. Green Sun's Twilight most of the time gets us both a creature and a land onto the battlefield. Wildest Dreams is a one-time use, gets several important things back from our graveyard to our hand. Cathartic Reunion for more card draw. Exponential Growth, this is the card that can end games with either Barrage Tyrant throwing something we've boosted to ridiculous levels, or with Leafkin Avenger dealing damage directly with its power ability. Hull Breach for pesky artifacts or enchantments. Jaya's Immolating Inferno can deal with multiple threats or opponents. Reap the Past lets us get different stuff back at random, but if you dump as much mana as you have stuff in the graveyard into the X, then the randomness doesn't matter. Long Rest is another exile after casting, but it lets us get back a bunch of stuff with different mana cost, which is sometimes all we need. Last is Primal Command, which does a bunch of different stuff, but the main thing is it grabs us any of the creatures we need at that moment. In response, let's go to our instance. Lunar Frenzy works as a huge X spell, plus it can come out of nowhere and sleep our opponents if they aren't careful.
Ooh, that brother's floating in the air.
Outmaneuver is another one that sneakily gets around our opponent's blockers who thought leaving them up would be enough to stop us. Strength of the Tajiru gives us a massive boost to the team, or just one creature, depending on how much we put into the kicker cost. Thrill of Possibility. Hunter's Insight combined with our growing board can draw us a buttload of cards. Lastly, Decree of Savagery puts 4 counters on all our creatures, but we can cycle it if we need, because not only do we draw a card, it also puts 4 +1/+1 counters on a single creature. Artifacts are where a bit of the utility comes in. Instrument of the Bards, which once it gets the counters on it, we usually wait for 3.
3 is a magic number,
which is the sweet spot for what we want. Either our mana dorks that grow with their power, or rabble for it to give haste. Sure Strike Trident takes our massive mana dorks or any of our giant creatures, turning them into a nuke. Two-Handed Axe gives us double strike for its instant adventure side, but as an equipment it doubles power till end of turn, which with our growing mana dorks or giant creatures can get out of hand quickly. Horizon Stone rounds out the artifacts by letting us essentially bank mana for big spells. Enchantments bring even more utility. Mana Bloom helps early game by letting us add 1 mana per turn by removing a counter on it, or later in the game it can help us trigger Raggadragga's ability. Fires of Yavimaya grants us haste, but we can sacrifice it in a pinch to get the last boost to our creatures we need to win. Snake Umbra protects Raggadragga or any of our other important pieces while possibly providing small card draw. Lastly, Leyline of Abundance lets us add an extra green mana each time we tap our mana dorks, but it also has a mana sink ability to give all of our creatures a +1/+1 counter, which, as you're going off with Bramble Familiar, this can slowly boost your entire team till you're ready to take everyone out. Lands round out the deck. Cinderglade, Command Tower, Crawling Barrens is another potential mana sink to get a massive creature. Game Trail, Kessig Wolfrun can boost a creature, or we can just use it for the trample. 12 Mountains, and 18 Forest. This deck is great for both new and established players because the Mana Dork Mafia strategy is simple and the combos are easy to understand. The deck can come out swinging with the best of them at just under $22 at time of recording. If you're looking for something Gruul for the new year, I would highly recommend this fun deck. For upgrades, Birds of Paradise. It's an evasive mana dork that can usually get in for damage on at least one opponent. There's always someone with no flyers. Marwyn the Nurturer may be Elf Mom, but in this deck she's a mob wife, adding to the list of mana dorks that grows as we boost them with power. Heronblade Elite is again another powerful mana dork that grows as we boost it. Shaman of the Forgotten Ways is not only a powerful mana dork, but its formidable ability can easily end the game for some players. Eternal Witness. I can't stress this enough. Eternal Witness being 3 mana is another huge upgrade with Instrument of the Bards. You can grab it to get something back from the grave and reuse it, find a way to toss it, and get it back again. The biggest thing this deck needs is protection. So Heroic Intervention, Silk Guard, Tyvar's Stand, Rampant Vigor, or Tamio's Safekeeping are great options to strengthen the resiliency of the deck. Some removals, such as Beast Within, Chaos Warp, or Azuri's Predation, are also good things to add, just in case the board starts getting out of control. If you want to turn it more into a combo deck, Green Sun Zenith, Court of Calling, Worldly Tutor, Natural Order, or Eldritch Evolution can get you there faster. Also, Woodbellower is not only a big threat, but tutors one of your 3 mana things right onto the battlefield. And of course a Soul Ring, just to get Raggadragga out even faster to get the strategy going. Slicing into cards to cut. Endless One is good, but if you have a bigger budget it's not as good, I'd cut it. Beastcaller Savant has haste, but its mana can only be spent to cast creatures. I'd cut it. Alloy Mirror is good on a budget, but with a bigger budget, any of the other mana dorks work better. I'd cut it. Birthing Hulk is really just here for the devoid in mana cost. I'd cut it. Reap the Past is good, but I'd rather have protection. I'd cut it. Long Rest again is mostly here for the mana cost being X, so I'd cut it. Lunar Frenzy is great, and it may win you a couple games, but I'd still rather have protection. I'd cut it. Horizon Stone is a good bank, but not as good as Soul Ring. I'd cut it. Snake Umbra is some kind of protection, but with a bigger budget I think we can find something better. I'd cut it. Remember, the more you play the deck, you will slowly realize what is dead in your hand most of the time, and what the deck needs more of, depending on the pods or people you play with. This is just meant as a starting point. Well, that's the deck with some upgrades and cards to cut. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe as it goes a long way to supporting the channel. I greatly appreciate it. Comment a commander you would like to see built on a budget or a card you would add to the deck. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.